Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. I've been busy today making a little pouch. It has a front flap and a pocket at the front and a zippered opening at the top, and it's big enough to put my cell phone or mobile phone. And we've got a little swivel clip and D-ring on the side with a wristlet strap as well. So that's our project for today. Come along and join me. Let's get started. All right, everything that we need is right here. The floral fabric is what I'm using as the outer fabric. The mauve is the lining. We have 2 pieces for the outer, 2 pieces for the lining, and I'm also going to fuse some Parlan, which is a very lightweight fusible fleece, to the wrong side of the outer fabric. Our seam allowance today is 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters. It can be 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch instead, but you will need to take that into account when you cut out your stabiliser and when you put your zip in place. So put your stabiliser inside the outer fabric and fuse that to both of those pieces. We also have another piece for the front pocket and a lining for the front pocket, and this stabiliser will go to the wrong side of that. We have a binding piece, we have a flap, so there's a piece of stabiliser for that, and 2 pieces of fabric for the flap. We're going to shape this though. We have an 8-inch zip, about a 9mm swivel clip and D-ring, and you want a strip of fabric to suit. So if you were going to use a bigger D-ring than this, you would need to make sure you use a wider strap as well. Likewise for your swivel clip. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is take the stabiliser for the flap, and on the 2 widest sides we're just going to mark a curve. Now this curve can be any size you like. This is a 2-inch circle template that I'm using, so it's just marking 1 inch from the corner on both sides. So I can trim that back. And we'll place this stabiliser onto one side of the flap and fuse that in place. We don't need to cut that just yet. We'll stabilise the front pocket and both of the outer fabric pieces. Let's go do that now. So all of these pieces have been stabilised. This front pocket here, you want to line up the stabiliser on the top edge and then have your seam allowance open on the sides and the bottom. With this piece of fabric that we're going to be using for our wristlet strap and for the tab, I've got a piece of Stitch Witchery. It's a double-sided hebbing tape, so this is fusible on both sides. And I like to use that because it just gives a little bit of stability to the fabric without being too much. And I'm just going to place that to the inside of the fabric. It doesn't fit across the whole bit, I just want to stabilise the centre. Because this is a double-sided fusible, what I'm going to do is fold my fabric in half first to bring the raw edges into the centre, and then I've folded that in half again. The first thing I'm going to do is cut off 2 inches or 5 centimetres. This will be for the tab. I'll just place that over the centre, fold that in and fold that in again, and stitch down both long edges. With this one, I'm going to cut the stabiliser 1 inch shorter than the fabric, and I'll place that to the inside as well, leaving about 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch without any stabiliser on the end. You don't have to stabilise this at all. It's thin enough that it's got enough stability on its own, but I do just like to have a little bit of extra. This stitch witchery, if you put this in, it doesn't matter if it's even shorter than I said. We're just going to fold these two pieces into the centre all the way along and press that, and I'll go and press that too. Alright, once you've fused that together, what we're going to do is sew the two short ends together. So bring those together at the top, and because we haven't fused that last little bit at the top edge, we can open up this fabric, and we're going to sew across here with a 1/4 inch seam, but not yet. First we have to put our swivel clip on. Grab your swivel clip, put that on to your wristlet strap. Then we can put the right sides together and we'll sew across there. We'll take our D-ring and we'll put that onto our tab. My fabric for the D-ring wasn't quite wide enough, so I'm actually going to leave this open, and I'll stitch down here, along here, and along there, and across there. Once we've closed up the top here, we'll fold everything back over again, and we'll stitch along both long edges, and we'll do that in the round. So we'll set that aside for the moment. Grab your flap fabric. We're going to place that right side together, and we'll be sewing right on the very edge of the stabiliser all the way around. You don't need to do the top. This piece is our front pocket piece. We'll take our lining piece, we'll place that right side together, and we'll sew all the way around. That's all we'll do for now. So we'll take all of these to the machine, sew up the wristlet strap, our tab, our pocket fabric, and the flap. If it's a struggle to get this under the machine, you can pull the fabric away from that stabiliser just to give you enough area to sew over. Once you've done that, just pull that apart, press that seam open. Finger pressing is all you need. Fold the edges under, and then fold those layers together and place that under your machine. And we're going to sew up the opening first. When you get to the beginning, sew across and sew down the other side. Once you've done that, fold the fabric just near that seam, slide your swivel clip down, and I'm just going to stitch over that a couple of times. And for the little tab, we'll sew down one side and across and down. And this is our flap. We're going to sew right beside that stabiliser. Now the pocket fabric, I made a mistake. All we need to do is place the two layers wrong side together. We're going to be binding the top of this, and the side seam and the bottom seam will be enclosed in the outer fabric. So we've got the right side out and the right side out, and we'll just sew a narrow seam which will be less than our normal 1/4 inch seam. We just want to secure these pieces together. We can set aside our tab and the wristlet strap. We need to trim close to the edge on the curve. I've got a pinking blade here, which for quilting cotton I find really nice and easy to use. Separate those layers and we can turn this the right way out. Give it a press. We will top stitch the bottom and the 2 side edges. With this one here, which is our front pocket, grab the piece for the binding, put the binding piece onto the edge that's got the stabiliser right on the very edge. So you'll sew with a 1/4 inch seam right across there. Once you've done that, you're going to open this out and press it. Then we're going to fold this raw edge to the middle there. Fold that back across again. And you'll top stitch all the way along the edge. So we'll press that and top stitch, we'll stitch that, press it, and then top stitch. I'll fold the top edge over to the middle and then fold that over one more time and sew along the bottom edge. And we'll top stitch this one. Okay, the flap's done and our pocket piece. Set those aside for a moment. We can grab the fabric for our outer bag and our lining, as well as the zip. Now with the zip, I'm going to leave my metal tabs on the ends. But what I do want to do is turn my flaps, or the ends of the zips, over on the diagonal like this. So you just grab the top end, bring it to the back of the zip, and bring it out on the diagonal. We'll do the same on this side, just as far as it will comfortably go. At the other end we'll do the same. It won't go much further. And what I'm going to do is take this to the machine and just stitch those little corners in place. I'll be right back. So that's the ends of our zip stitched out of the way. What we want to do now is fold this in half and find the centre. So I've marked the centre of the zip. We want to mark the centre of our lining. And the centre of our outer fabric. I'm going to be using double-sided tape to secure everything in place here. If you don't have access to it, you can just use pins or clips. I'm often asked about the double-sided tape, and I have done a video about it previously, a tape test, to see which ones will gum up your needles and which ones don't. It took me some time to find a supplier. So what you need is a wash-away double-sided tape, not just a double-sided craft tape. If it's not wash away, then it's going to gum up your needles. We'll put the double-sided tape onto our lining fabric as well. And then what we can do is find the centre of our flap. Now before we put our zip and everything together, we're going to place our pocket piece to the front of our bag. And if you want to label your product, it's best to go and do that now. Okay, I've put my label onto the front of the pocket. I'm going to lay that down and line up the bottom edge, and we'll stitch that to the front of the outer fabric. We'll take our pocket flap, remove that tape, and we'll line up that centre marking, and we'll sew this in place as well. I'll do slightly less than 1/4 inch seam allowance here. And I'll do the same on the sides. I'll run a little bit of extra tape just along the top here so that the zip has something to stick to, and we will place the slider to the left and faced down and line up the centre. Grab your lining, we'll place that over the top, lining up those marks. And from the stabilised side, we're going to sew right along the edge of the zip. You just want to move the zipper head out of the way as you come to it. Once you've done that, you'll open the fabric out, bring the lining to the back, and we're going to top stitch with the flap out of the way, and we'll secure the lining and the outer fabric together. So I like to run my fingers along the edge where the zip slider is, and then I'll put my foot right along beside that. That gives me my guide, and then I'll go back and back stitch at the beginning and sew to the end. I'm coming close to the slider. We'll raise the presser foot, move that back, and stitch to the end. We can open up our fabric, press the lining away from the zip and fold that over. The flap needs to be out of the way, and we can top stitch. And before we forget, we're going to place this tab just on the left there. Just double check that you have the lining away from the back of your fabric. We're going to place this onto our outer fabric, lining up those centre markings again. And if it doesn't line up properly, I would be lining up the side edges first and then the top. And then we can place our lining over the top of the other piece. And once again, we'll sew from the stabilised side, separate the fabric and top stitch. And you'll want to move your zipper head out of the way before you start sewing. Press your lining to the back and top stitch. And don't forget to sew on that little tab. Alright, I fixed that up. Now I can bring my lining pieces together. We're going to line up the top where the zip is. And we'll do the same on the other side. When we sew this together, see the little metal tab that you have just here? You want to make sure that you don't stitch on that. So we've only got a very small stitching area here. The 1/4 inch that I've allowed will be enough to go over that. And if it's not, I can just kind of manipulate my foot to do a slightly smaller seam. Now, right about now, I'm imagining a couple of people shouting out to me, "Have you left your zipper open?" Well, I can tell you I have not. So before we do anything, we're just going to go and double check that the zip is open. And mine isn't open at all. And I get caught out all the time. So before you start sewing or closing up the bag, you want to open up your zip at least halfway. And then you can secure all the layers together. So I heard you shouting. People comment in my videos and let me know when they've noticed that I've forgotten to leave the zip open. I've popped the tab back inside, and because that's got a D-ring on it, you want to make sure that the D-ring is sitting inside the bag, not anywhere near your stitching area. I like to sew at the top where the zip is because that allows me to stabilise that area and get it nice and even. So even though this side has a very small seam allowance, I'm going to sew right next to that, then come down and sew up to here, secure that, and then I can easily go and do the lining. Now with the lining, we want to leave an opening somewhere. Most people like to leave an opening at the bottom, and generally I do too, but I think I'm going to leave my opening at the side just because I'm a sucker for punishment. So I'm going to leave my little opening here. I'll backstitch at this end and this end to secure that. If you prefer, then you can leave an opening of about 4 fingers width along the bottom instead. Now to make sure that I don't accidentally stitch over the metal tab, I'm going to bring my needle down using the hand wheel, and I'm in a nice safe place there so I can start sewing here. And when you come up to the other side, you want to make sure that those little metal tabs are out of the way. This side's got a little bit of an extra seam on it. I'm leaving my opening here. All right, let's trim our corners. And we can turn the bag the right way out. It's easier if you open the zip all the way now. Poke out your corners and then go to the side that you've chosen for your opening. Pinch those edges together and we'll close that up. I'll just take that to the machine now and sew from here to here. All right, that's closed up now. All we need to do is tuck that inside. Close up the bag. We can pop our swivel clip onto our D-ring. You can make this a lot longer if you want to, so you can wear it as a lanyard around your neck. And then we can put a little snap onto our flap. So let's find the center. This is the centre right about here. I'm going to come up about 2 centimetres or 3/4 of an inch. Poke a hole in there. Bring my flap over to the front and place that nice and evenly over the front of the bag. Bring the awl back through that little hole that we've made, and I'm just going to make a mark in the front pocket, move that flap and continue poking that awl through that front pocket. Grab the flat side and we'll bring that in through the back. Squeeze that shut. And this flat side will go through the front. And we're all finished. And all that's left to do is fill it up. So I've intentionally made this bag big enough to fit my phone. So I've got a Samsung, I don't know what kind, but it is the most recent model. And that will fit inside there with ease. It will probably fit in the front section as well. Yes, it does. So you can pop a couple of little tools in there as well. And keep your phone in the front as well. Nice little easy carrying pouch. Now I've made this to suit the size of my phone. If you want to change the sizing of this, say you want to have it a little bit longer for pens or markers and things like that, and you're going to be using a regular zip, I would be guided by the size of the zip that you're using and then add about 3/8 of an inch to each side just to give you enough clearance, probably even 1 inch to each side, because you can always trim your fabric back if it's a little bit too wide. So whatever size zipper you use, add 1 whole inch to the width of your fabric. And if you want to increase the height of your bag, then determine what you want for the height to be. So if your height needs to be an extra 1/2 inch, for example, you only need to add 1/2 inch to the pocket piece, nothing more than that, and the same to the pocket flap. And that's all there is to it in changing the sizing. And you'll do the same if you want to scale it down. So what do you think? It's cute, isn't it? Very simple to make. Just one little pocket at the front with a flap and another zipper at the top. So we've done plenty of these sorts of things before. I just felt like I wanted to do something since I have my mojo back a little bit today. And in fact, I've actually managed to get 4 videos done this week. I just have to find the time to edit them now. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm not going to make them to sell. Even though I've put my label on, usually when I make a product, I tend to put my labels on, because even if it's only a one-off, I'll try and sell it in the shop. I'll probably put $15 or $20 on this one, but I'm not going to make them to sell just because I don't have enough time. I've been busy making up those book bags this week. I've made about, I don't even know where they are now. I've made about a dozen of those. So I've been making up some other shop stock. I just don't have the time to bring something new into the store. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.